off and running on a Tuesday. We are in a good mood today. We have so much to do, and thanks you for being here, man. So many people, thank you. I mean, so many people are off for Christmas, and the idea that anyone would work today, Randy, who else is there here? Justin. Oh, Justin, I'm sorry, I couldn't see you. I can't see anything. We're all here. And yes, we are dipping into the eggnog because it's available and it's free. Welcome. Let's go to the headlines, which are also free. Ed O is the AP Coach of the Year. Did that surprise anyone? Matt Rule was second. Ryan Day third. This is the National Coach of the Year, in case you're wondering. And he should have won. So this is from the Los Angeles Times, one of those many newspapers that nobody reads. Watching Edo fight on with LSU is the hardest thing for SC and his fans. Remember, 2013, Edo could have been the coach there. But no, they had to hire Steve Sarkisian. What did he do? Got drunk in public, made a fool out of himself, got fired. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln had to enjoy the play. And Dan Mullen has got nothing on his mind but winning a championship. Forget all those job offers which haven't come. Dan Mullen is alive and happy, and he's chomping down in the Orange Bowl against Virginia. Hey, how you doing? I decided we're going to turn this into a comedy show since we can't depend on the callers to be funny. We're going to be funny ourselves. Anyway, glad you're here. It's 17th of December, which means one thing. Next Tuesday is Christmas Eve. If you can find this show on Christmas Eve, good luck. But we will be here all week, every single day of the week. And let's talk about what we're going to be doing here on the program today. Jordan Rogers will be here. And we're grateful to him for making time talking Vanderbilt. Yes, they're still being talked about. Josh Kendall from The Athletic. He survived the season covering the Gamecocks. He's got coal in his stocking, though. Pat Dooley, hang down your head. Here to talk about the Gators. And what type of program is it going to be without Steve Spurrier, who we've announced today as our co-host? Yeah, Spurrier is going to talk about a number of things, including dealing with fandom today. Our phone number is 855-242-7285. That has always been the number, and it always will be until they change it. Right now, it's still 855-242-PAUL. Yes. I saw them in the other room, the graphics over. They covered it up when I got in. It said 855-242-JAMES. So apparently, some guy named James is going to be taking the show over in the future. Anyway, let's get to the calls and talk to some callers. Charles the Barber is first up from Birmingham, Alabama, the 205.
Yes, sir. How you doing, Paul?
Charles, Merry Christmas. Great to have you on.
Merry Christmas to you. Yes, sir.
And to all, good night.
I've been trying to get on this show for the last couple of weeks and all, and I saw where you talked to Stephen A. Smith on the show.
Yeah.
All that. I enjoyed it and everything. I called to let you know I saw Mr. Bobby. Okay.
Oh, my goodness. How is Mr. Bobby doing?
He's doing pretty good. He's been sick, and everything. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
I went over to his house last week and saw him, and he's, just going through it right now, And,
well, listen, Bobby, if you're watching or listening, please, you have our sincerest wishes of getting well first and a Merry Christmas, because we love you, Bobby, even though you abandoned us after Alabama beat you. After Clemson beat Alabama last year. And by the way, he wasn't sick then.
I talked to him on yesterday, and
so what did he say?
Was feeling a little bit. He said that he was feeling a little bit better yesterday.
Is he ever going to call us again?
I think he will. Once he get able to and feel better and everything, I believe he will call. He'll give y'all a call, man.
Okay.
'Cause I mentioned, that y'all miss him a lot and everything, and he's hanging in there, real good, all that. So I keep in contact with him. I try to stay in contact with him at least once a week, check on him, see how he's doing.
Does he still keep up with us at all, or can he not listen anymore
Yes,
since
he
Alabama has
still
lost?
He still watches.
Oh, okay.
He still watches. Yes, he still watches.
Hey, by the way, what did he say about his football team?
Well, hey, he's still saying that, he's still Roll Tide all the way, all that, and he's still, that Bobby, he's still Alabama fan. He's still a Bama fan, and he's looking forward for them playing against Michigan, and and all, and really that he wished that they would have been playing for the national championship, but since they're not,
It's kind of hard to play for the
with them.
national championship when you lose two conference games.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
But I want to give a shout out to a couple of Tide fans too, and I know I'm a War Eagle fan, but I want to give a shout outs to.
Now, let me ask you a question,
Carlo.
Charles, because your team beat his. I mean, you didn't rub it in, even though Bobby was sick, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't rub it in. No.
Okay.
No,
Well, you're a classy guy then. I would have rubbed it in.
Yes, sir.
I would say, hey, man, I know you're sick, but War Eagle.
Well, yeah, he know I'm War Eagle all the way. But I want to give a shout out to my coworker Carlos, and I want to give a shout out to Gary Lauster, and another shout out to Padilla Patrick. All of them, they're Tide fans and all. And I had to get some rocking chairs for them and everything except for Carlos, because I worked with him when they lost against us in the Iron Bowl.
Right.
I told him I was going to get them some rocking chairs and with a box of Kleenex and everything, so they can wipe the tears coming out the eyes.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, I'm with you. Listen, Charles, always great to hear from you. Merry Christmas. Let's go to Stephen in Mississippi, who is next up.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for having me on. I'm a first-time caller that actually got it to ring and didn't get a busy signal.
Well, I'm glad you made it.
Me too. Kind of what I want to talk about. I'm a huge LSU fan, raised by my grandfather that way, thank heavens. But, as our coaching search went down a couple of years ago, we went after, Tom Herman and Jimbo Fisher, and luckily we ended up at Orgeron. A&M threw all this money at Jimbo Fisher, 10 years, $75 million. And the way the future's looking right now is, how long are they going to keep him going 8-4 and 7-5 every year?
Well, Stephen, are you an Aggie fan?
Oh no, go Tigers.
Well, you don't. Well, I don't mean to be disrespectful here, but you really don't know what you're talking about.
Enlighten me, please.
Well, because if you follow Texas A&M, you know that they had the most difficult schedule in the country this year. They played 3 teams that were number 1 in the country. They played at Georgia, so that's 4 teams that were ranked in the top 4. And they lost at home to Auburn. So smart Texas A&M fans understand that this was a very trying year schedule-wise. Very few teams could have survived that schedule. So I don't think anyone is looking at Jimbo Fisher and going, you know what, this is an abject disaster.
Look who we played. We went 13-0. I mean, how many teams did we beat?
Well, I'm not really interested in your team. We're talking about Texas A&M.
Exactly, but I'm just saying our schedule's just as hard. A&M, they're going to be doing this every year. I just don't see them getting any better.
Listen, I'll repeat again, Stephen, if you
8-4.
have any idea what you're talking about, which you don't, you wouldn't have said what you said.
Well, hey, Paul, obviously you're the expert in this area.
No,
you know
I'm not an expert, but we had an expert on here yesterday who got through telling us that people in College Station are upbeat because their recruiting is going great, and they fully expect with Kellen Mond at quarterback next year, things are going to be a lot better.
I just think that's wishful thinking. Obviously, I'm not in their area, I don't get on their message board.
Well, my question to you is this: why are you concerned about Texas A&M?
I'm just curious what they're going to do with Jimbo and all that money. I just don't see him being there that much longer. That same record.
But you're also not listening to what I said. The record's not going to be the same next year. The schedule is dramatically easier.
See,
they're going to replace They're going to replace a road game at Georgia with a home game against Vanderbilt. So again, wishful thinking, whatever you want to do. You got the right coach. That's obvious, but that doesn't mean Texas A&M got the wrong coach. I think they got the right coach too. We'll take a break. More to come. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. So the McShay mock draft is out. I'm sure by now you've heard about this. Joey Burrow atop, Judy. Andrew Thomas has just declared. Pretty good players in there. What about Tua at number 3? That's pretty interesting. Bunch of Alabama players in there. None of whom made first-team All-American, by the way.
No first-team All-Americans, but what is that? 7 first-round picks.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's not a bad number to be highlighting on the even National Signing Day, I'm sure.
So Miami, the Dolphins have 3 first-round picks. And, I think it's, what do they have?
Projected.
4? Well, no, they have 3 picks.
Oh, yeah, excuse me.
3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
But, I think it's 4, 17, 22. So, they have different options. They need a quarterback. Josh Rosen isn't the one, and Ryan Fitzpatrick is our age. So, he's not the answer either. So, I don't know. Paul, would you
take a shot on Tua?
When do you find out? Like when you can draft Tua? Like how long till this process goes out until you have to?
You have till April, so it's no big rush.
Well, he has to declare January 20th.
Well, come on, let's not be silly here.
Well, sources have told me that he might come back.
We need a school mark.
Told me he's not.
We need a school mark on the art of reading between the lines. If you saw that press conference the other day that Tua held, it was pretty obvious what's going to happen.
Let's try to avoid idiotic statements here on the show. We have enough coming from callers.
It's early in the week. We've had a strong start. Let's keep it going.
Strong. All right.
Right.
Paul, do you buy the mock?
Statements.
Do you buy the mock drafts? They can be pretty accurate as far as.
That's. First of all, there's no way in the world you can say Tua is going that high right now.
That's fair.
Let's continue. Andre is up next. Hey, Andre.
Coach Paul Finebaum. Coach, do you know what tomorrow is?
Tomorrow, the sun will come out tomorrow? Is that what tomorrow is?
It's called shopping for the groceries, Coach. Shopping for the groceries. In order to bake a great meal or to bake a great cake, hey, you got to have the recipe. You have to have the Jimmy and the Joe, Coach. And if you don't have it, listen, and like I told you last week, and I tell any fan base, these national recruiting rankings go hand in hand with the playoff. You can go look at any of these teams that made the playoff and go look and see where they're ranked at. And if you're not stringing together 4 and 5 top 10 recruiting classes every year straight, back to back to back, you're not going to make it.
You are correct, my friend.
And the coaches that say recruiting rankings don't matter, well, where are they at playoff time?
Nowhere to be found.
Nowhere to be found. Where's Jim, Coach? I hadn't heard him in the last couple of days.
He has not called. He's too busy trying to get other people not to call.
Oh, okay. I like Jim, Coach. I like Jim. But, Coach, when they first hired Coach Joe, I was hard on him because I didn't want him to get the job. I told you I thought that him and Joel Lieber would go down together holding hands like the Titanic. And you know what, Coach? I was wrong, and I'm glad they got Coach Joe. And listen, the guy that just called in about Texas A&M, hey, get a man a chance. Look, Texas A&M and South Carolina had a hard road to hoe, Coach. It was a tough road for them. So I think Texas A&M, they'll probably get a lot better. I can't say the same for South Carolina. Well, thanks for taking my call, Coach Finebaum.
John is up next in Atlanta. Hey, John.
Hello, Paul. How are you?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you two points, one on Florida and the other one on Ohio State. With Florida, it seems like they win 8-9 games, but what do you think they need to take to go to the next level? It seems like they're losing too many kids in recruiting in their own state, and it just seems like they're falling short when they're right.
I'll tell you
at
what,
the
let me
door.
ask Pat Dilley that question. He'll be on later. He covers the Gators.
Okay. And then the second point about Ohio State, I think they lost 31-0 in 2016. I know it's different teams and different circumstances, but what does Ohio State need to do from a game plan? And
Yeah, listen, John, I thought about that today. I was doing a recording of something, and that came up. But I don't know what 2016 has to do with 2019. To me, different coaches, different teams, different quarterbacks. I'm not a gambler, so I don't play trends like some people do. But that game has nothing to do with what Ohio State has to do is do what they've done all season. I know that sounds like a pretty pathetic cliche, but they've been one of the most consistent teams in the country. They have not really had a bad game. They had a bad half against Wisconsin. They had a bad quarter against Penn State. They seem like they lost a little bit of momentum, but that's really about it. Hey, thank you very much for the call. Let's continue with Pat in Georgia. Hey, Pat.
Hey, Paul. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
I wanted to run some things by you about Georgia and Kirby Smart, just get your thoughts one way or another. Mike Bobo left on mutual terms, and he ended up at South Carolina for Coach Muschamp. I was hoping Kirby would look at Mike and possibly pick him up, get him back at Georgia.
Well, Mike Bobo's already signed with.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
okay,
That's
okay.
unfortunate. We went to the Sugar Bowl last year because we wanted to really see what we could do against Texas. Georgia did not show up. That's not news. Whether Georgia shows up this year, I think is going to be very telling.
Yeah, I think it will too. That was an embarrassment. I don't think it really got things off to a good start. And I mean, I frankly have found this season to be fairly. I mean, this may sound like a bold statement here, but I think it's been a fairly disappointing season in some ways for Georgia. And
I would agree.
And a
with
loss
you.
would be pretty devastating.
One more thought. I love Kirby Smart, but actually two more thoughts. He and Mark Richt, he's developing the same problem.
Mark Richt had a better start than Kirby Smart did when you get right down to it.
But I think he's got to go to the RPO. We need to keep the defense, and I'm old school SEC. I graduated in '69. He's going to have to go to the RPO, and he's got to recruit to get there. That's not going to happen.
Well, he did recruit to get there, but the quarterback that he recruited is gone.
You're absolutely right, and I'm not criticizing him for that, but the moves he makes next year are going to be very, very telling about what the next 2 or 3 years look like. And I hope he's successful. I'm a Bulldog.
Thank you very much for the call. I do appreciate it. Let's continue with more calls. And Mark is up next in Georgia.
Hey, Paul, this is Mark in way down South Georgia. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for the call.
This is my first time calling. I've been trying for a long, long time, probably a million calls. But anyway,
Great to have you on.
Thank you. I'm glad to be on. Actually, I was wanting to touch on yesterday. I think it was yesterday when y'all were reviewing the SEC teams, and we were talking about Georgia and how, very disappointing losses to Alabama after big leads and all that. But I still think, they get credit where credit's due. I mean, what did y'all say yesterday? 36 losses in 10 years. I mean, 3 SEC East titles in a row. I felt a little, they wasn't getting the credit they're due. I mean, even though they got beat by LSU like they did and all that, but they still got a good team. There's a lot of other teams out there that probably wish they could be in their shoes.
Well, listen, it all depends on what you want. Do you want
Yeah,
to?
well,
And that's always been the issue at Georgia.
Yeah, I want SEC. I mean, national championships, but it didn't go our way. But I mean, we made it there, and You know, had big leads, blew it, kind of like the Falcons did against the Patriots. You know, but you know, still, I mean, I think they're pretty relevant. What do you think?
Well, listen, I mean, Georgia's 2 years in a row number 5 team in the country. That's great.
Yeah.
But do you think Kirby Smart's satisfied with that?
No, no. Nobody in Georgia is.
Well,
I mean,
then
we're
what? Then let me ask you, what does it matter? What has happened or transpired other than the present?
Well, we're happy to get the wins we got and all that, but yeah, when it all comes down to it, you know, number one is what everybody wants. And another question: do you think Georgia made a mistake letting Justin Fields get out of there?
No, I don't, because you can't go back and second guess decisions made at the time. I think it was the right call, and do I think Georgia would have been in the playoffs with Justin Fields? Yes, but Jake Fromm is a phenomenal quarterback, and he just didn't have the complements around him this year to deliver the goods. Thanks for the call. We'll be right back with much. Back-to-back 9-win seasons in 12 and 13, a couple of bowl wins, a couple of coaches.
2 very good coaches.
One really great coach, two coaches with losing records.
It's still the best decade.
Well, but here, okay, let's take James Franklin out of it. What does it look like then?
Looks like half a decade.
Same
It
old.
looks like 2 coaches with losing records.
Fair. I'm not going to lie. It's a little tough to celebrate some of the Vanderbilt stuff, but they've had success on the baseball field.
One thing I pride ourselves on this program is being honest.
It's true.
Derek Mason has done well at times, but I don't know how you can excuse the last season. I mean, it was an abject disaster.
It was.
In every way, shape, and form.
You can't, and like you just have to say, because of the goodwill that's been built up there, that you get another year, try to turn it around, get back to that 7-8 wins if you can.
Yeah.
It helps when you have guys like this on the Vanderbilt Rushmore Hall of Fame.
Let's take a look.
Jordan
This is
Matthews,
awesome. I was mad I missed this yesterday. You guys looked like you were having a lot of fun with this.
Jordan Rogers, Ralph Webb, Zach Cunningham. Those are good players. Very good players.
Very good squad. The 2 Jordans. Jordan Matthews set a SEC record, right, for receptions.
Yeah.
I think it's since been broken, but
I mean, Paul,
pretty cool.
Mostly, though, what Vanderbilt has been able to do, I mean, they had a winning streak versus Tennessee. That is what they can hang their hat on more than anything.
Well, that's why Derek Mason's still there.
Yeah, that is the goodwill that you referenced earlier, Mark.
Over Tennessee is something, regardless of what Tennessee's ups and downs have been, the fact that you can come in and beat Tennessee 3 straight years.
Who doesn't have a winning streak against Tennessee?
Not Vanderbilt anymore.
Not Vanderbilt anymore.
Well, going into this season, there were quite a few that did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that is the goodwill that was built up, and that is something that you're
goodwill
hoping.
is fine, but we live in the present. And I was surprised by the decision. I wasn't. I understood it, but I'd like to hear Derek Mason explain what the path is moving forward. That's all I'm asking. Welcome back. We are joined now by Jordan Rogers, who's on the Mount Rushmore of Vanderbilt. Jordan, congratulations, first of all.
What's up, Paul? Congratulations for what?
You're on Mount Rushmore.
Whoa! Wow! Appreciate that.
Last 10 years of Vanderbilt football.
I'm trying to think who else is up there. Franklin?
Jordan Matthews, Ralph Webb,
Matt,
Zach Cunningham.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Did we leave anybody else? By the way, James Franklin should be up there too.
Yeah, I might even throw Zach Stacy in my place. There's a couple. There's some good ones out there. That's a good list.
Well, you got grandfathered in by your place of employment.
I realize that.
We were talking during the break, and we're reviewing the decades, and I know you played for Franklin, and we're all partial to our alma mater, but I do have to ask you, I mean, what does the future look like for Vanderbilt right now after this season?
It's interesting, Paul. I mean, I got a chance to be, 2010, a part of that 2-10 season that we turned into, a 9-4 season under Franklin, who he followed up with another 9-win season. So I think the first part of this last decade was very positive in thinking, wow, Vanderbilt's going in a completely different direction. And then obviously as Mason took over, there wasn't much there. So the first couple of years, you completely understood that at a school like Vanderbilt, there was a big rebuild that needed to happen even after James Franklin and the momentum that was going. And with the Texas Bowl last year, you thought, okay, things are heading in the right direction. Right now, I think it's completely up in the air. And not really because of anybody that's there. And I love Derek Mason. But, as a race car driver, you're only as good as your car. It really doesn't matter who's driving it. Yes, they can make some impact, but you're only as good as your engine and how fast you can go. And that engine for Vanderbilt is the facilities. And they continue to be so far behind. And where you see that kind of come to fruition is recruiting. And at a place like Vanderbilt, you got to be able to recruit against Kentucky. You got to be able to recruit against Missouri. And those facilities right now completely, especially the last couple of years, have changed for the better at both those places, and Vanderbilt hasn't. So it doesn't matter who the head coach is. It doesn't matter what Malcolm can do as the new athletic director. It's the facilities. They got to be able to recruit, got to get athletes in there that can actually be able to compete at this level, and right now they fall behind in that category year after year. So unless that changes, I don't see much changing at Vanderbilt.
How do you do that, though? And I know you've been very active and very vocal about this, but are people listening to you?
I think so. I got a chance to sit down with Malcolm his first couple weeks on the job and just say, hey, kind of here's what I've been through, right? I've been through the real bad. I've been through some of the facility upgrades, getting an indoor, doing some stuff around, the campus, but this needs an overhaul, and it's never going to get fixed with a Band-Aid. It's not going to get fixed by just putting some money into the stadium because, frankly, stadiums don't recruit kids. Player facilities recruit kids. And so that's what needs to change. I think everyone just needs to realize that at a place like Vanderbilt, at a place like Nashville that is absolutely exploding, one of the hottest cities in the entire country, is that Vanderbilt can be a really strong and elite academic program, and it can also simultaneously and not mutually exclusive be a good program that invests similar to what other schools do in their football program and other programs as well. Baseball, basketball, they could all use some upgrades. But right now, I still think there's a stereotype around the academia side of Vanderbilt and the sports side that are very opposing. And people think that if you invest in one, you're not as good at the other. And I just think that needs to break first. People need to realize that $50 million is not going to do it, and $100 million is probably not going to do it. Other schools are realizing you have to compete at a high level. And actually, one of the last games I did at Missouri this season, I think they invested, I think the grand total came a little over $100 million. And that facility is unbelievable. And they invested what they needed to get their facilities where they need it for a new head coach and for a program that they want to take that next step. It's not going to take a Band-Aid. And so until people realize that that's what's needed, not better seats, not better bathrooms in the stadium, but better player facilities so you can recruit elite athletes, that's the only thing that's going to fix it. So it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a new athletic director, convincing a lot of people that's what's needed.
Talking to Jordan Rogers about Vanderbilt. Let me switch gears here, Jordan, to talk a little bit about what we've seen all season long and certainly over the weekend with LSU. I remember talking to you at Media Days, and we all knew Joe Burrow had upside, but have you seen anything quite like his ascension from good to great?
No. It's truly unbelievable because if you look back at last year, and again, I was one of the ones that maybe was more critical than many about Joe Burrow, but if you look back at last year, yeah, you can look past the scheme. The scheme didn't fit him very well. It put him in situations that were advantageous, as that scheme did for a lot of LSU quarterbacks. But even when you look further into the film, he wasn't great. He wasn't very accurate. Even when there was open receivers, he was bad in the red zone. Paul, he completed 30% of his passes, 13 of 42 in the red zone all of last year with 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I don't care what plays are getting called. If you're completing 30% of your passes, you're just not doing very well. So, the fact that, yes, this new system is going to help anybody, but the fact that Joe Burrow himself made so much improvement with this system and separate from this system is absolutely astonishing. I don't think you can discredit the work he put in to his mechanics, to his velocity and how he got more zip on his ball this year, to his accuracy. Some of that is system, but man, a lot of that is just Joe Burrow becoming a better player. So I think equally you can credit Joe Brady, Steve Ensminger, at Orgeron for what they did to get the direction of that offense and to get the pieces in place that they needed. But you got to give a lot of credit to Joe Burrow, too, because he grinded. And sustaining that type of success, the type of success that he did, completing the amount of balls that he did on a weekly basis, never having an off game, that takes hours and hours and hours of preparation every day, consistently 7 days a week. And that's something that as a student athlete, that's hard to sustain. So I give so much credit to Burrow, to that staff, but to Joe Burrow especially for what he went through to make himself better, how much he grinded by himself. People won't even know. We don't know the extent to what he did, but obviously it shows on the field this year. So it's unbelievable the amount of strides he made. And it's something that I'm not sure we'll ever see that big of a turnaround again.
Jordan, as you look at the matchup a week from Saturday against Oklahoma, I mean, what we know some of the mismatches, but what would you, if you had to take the side of Oklahoma, which I don't think you really have to, but for them to win, what do they do? How do they take advantage?
Yeah, it's going to take a Superman performance from Jalen Hurts. He's going to have to put the cape on. He's capable of doing just that. If you look at this defense for LSU, they're really good. They got first rounders across the board at all three levels at some point in their career. But the one Achilles heel that we've seen is mobility at the quarterback position. We saw John Rice Plumlee, who is, yes, a different athlete than Jalen Hurts. He's got a little more burst to him, maybe a little more top-end speed, but that's how Oklahoma has to win this game. Jalen Hurts has got to rush for 150-plus. He's got to gash him a couple big times on pass plays where he scrambles and makes something out of absolutely nothing. That's the one thing that if I was Dave Aranda, I'd be worried about. Jalen Hurts' legs. How can he hurt me? Not on the design quarterback runs, but how could he hurt me when we're playing coverage, when they're trying to push the ball downfield and Jalen takes off? Because that's when he's most dangerous. And I think that's how Oklahoma wins, and I think that's the only way they win is if Jalen Hurts really hurts this defense with his legs.
Finally, a lot of surprises among players who are playing versus not playing. And maybe the biggest is Jerry Jeudy. He's projected to go third in the draft. What's the explanation? What do you think is the reason why he is playing?
I didn't see. Did he decide to play or not play?
He said that. Yeah, he said yesterday he is going to play.
I love that. It's great. I totally respect every individual player's decision, and I hold no criticism for decisions made to protect your future. I think you've earned that. You've earned the right to make that decision. But you also do, on the other side as a fan, you love the guys that say, you know what, I'm going to suit up. I'm going to suit up with my guys. I'm going to take that risk. So I think it's a risk that he has taken, and it's a big risk that he's taken, especially at the receiver position. You're doing a lot of cutting. You're going full speed. All it takes is a non-contact cut to end someone's career or to, affect their draft stock. So you like the character. You like the decision from the standpoint of he wants to put his team first. But it's definitely a risk to take. And as a player, if I'm top 10, if I'm top 15, and nothing's going to affect that, I wouldn't play. And that would be the choice I would make for me. But again, never criticize those decisions and always respect guys that do play.
Well, it's hard to imagine it's going to really affect his draft status. I think we all know where he's going. Well, Jordan, listen, congratulations. We will send you the Finebaum Show edition of the Mount Rushmore. We just need a couple of $100 in return for you to send it.
Will do. Maybe a T-shirt or something. I don't know. I'll give you $15.
Okay. Deal. Thanks, Jordan. Always great to talk to you. Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay. Jordan Rogers joining us, and we are going to rejoin you when we come back.
And then what happened in the aftermath of that was they actually played such a great game in dismantling Georgia, and it could have been worse than it really was. I mean, LSU dropped, there was one drop touchdown pass for sure. And I guess the Wisconsin first half was enough to get LSU back into number one. But the fact that Alabama dropped to 12 after they lost to LSU and then to 13, which is a joke. To me, it's as if the committee, they were so caught up in trying to get the 4 right that after 4, they just made fools of themselves. Well, think about this, Paul, all right? And everybody says to me, well, don't you think they did get the right 4? And isn't it still – this was, after all, there were 3 unbeatens, and then we were struggling to find a 4th. And if we're struggling to find a 4th, Paul, that is once again completely missing the point. okay, for the betterment of the college game, how much fun would it be? Now, we've got to wait, until the 28th, so we're inching up on it, right? But we go through 2 weeks of just nothing, that desolate desert, okay, for college football. You got to turn to the FCS to be entertained between now and the 28th, basically. And if we had 8 teams instead of 4, and we started this baby at home sites, which is where college football is cultivated most, and teams that were seeded 1 through 4 got to play at home, we'd be looking at 1 versus 8, and I put Memphis in that position because they're the best group of 5 teams. So 1 versus 8 is Memphis at LSU. 7 versus, by the way, if that were happening, I don't think Norvell would be in Tallahassee right now.
No.
Okay, Memphis would have held on to their coach a little longer. Ohio State would be playing Florida because Florida earned it the way they played over the back half of the season.
They really did.
So 2 versus 7. 3 versus 6 would be Clemson Baylor at Death Valley in South Carolina. How much fun would that game be? Baylor played Oklahoma off their feet. And 4 versus 5, I mean, we're looking at great matchups.
Welcome back. We're continuing with your calls at 855-242-7285. And let's go to Brian next in Kentucky. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Paul. I've meant to ask you this question from time to time for years, and I keep forgetting it.
Sure, Ron.
Is there a better reflection of a state's personality and a coach's personality than Ed Ogeron of LSU? I'd like your perspective on that, but also the viewers and listeners to your program.
No, Ron, because I think, listen, it would. I've seen this before, where a coach is, sometimes you talk about certain animals look like people, or people look like animals, or people. I mean, Ed Ogeron is Louisiana. It's a very proud state. You understand that, being from the Commonwealth, and he represents the work ethic in that state, especially in that region, the southern region. Louisiana's like a lot of states. They're different parts of it. The northern part is completely different than the southern part, and I think that's why he's so relatable, and I think that's why some people down there thought he might work before some of us could understand it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your perspective, but over the years, he just seems to reek Louisiana.
Well, he is. I mean, and I think one more thing, Ron. I mean, it's overstated that he used to work on a shrimp boat, but he did. So he understands the hardworking people of that state. I mean, he's the antithesis of Nick Saban, who came in there from West Virginia by way of Michigan State, but he was extremely popular. But he wasn't one of them. Ogeron is.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. And certainly a lot better fit than the guy that was between those two. Roshan is up next.
How you doing, Paul?
Hey there. Good afternoon.
Paul, I just want to know, I'm from Arkansas, and I wasn't real thrilled when they hired Sam Pittman. So I want to know, after you spoke with him, and I saw that you weren't thrilled with the hire as well, but after you spoke with him and had the interview with him, how do you feel about him after sitting down and speaking with him?
Well, I came away really liking him. Now, I've fallen for coaches before the first week. But all you can do, I mean, let's just shoot straight, okay? Arkansas is a dumpster fire. Pittman was hired because he was an abject disaster, and almost anyone would have been better than the person they had. If you're following me, I think you are. So
yes, I am. I did not like the last coach. Chad Morris, didn't know him, don't care about him.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was a salesman. He sold something that he couldn't deliver on, and he kept selling it long past the point that nobody was buying. So, to me, this guy. There's no guarantee he's going to be successful. I heard David Basil, who used to be the captain of the team, say yesterday, well, we're behind him. Well, of course you're behind him. I've covered 1,000 press conferences, and no matter how good or bad the person is, everyone's behind him the first week. To me, though, I saw something I liked. I saw a real guy. I saw someone who has gotten his dream job, who's determined to do everything he can. And having said all that, I have no earthly idea whether he'll be successful or not.
well, thank you, Paul. That's
Okay.
all I wanted to know. Like I say, I wanted to be being just an offensive line guru. You know, that's what he's known for. You know, can he get the offensive coordinator in here to come with him? I see he has a defensive coordinator, but can he get some guys in here?
Well, let me say this,
He got-
Rashawn. The day Nick Saban was hired at Alabama, I was on a program with my good friend Rick Carley, and he said, "Do you think he'll be successful?" I said, "Nick Saban will win a national championship in 4 years." And you know what? I was wrong. He won 1 in 3. I couldn't make a prediction that Sam Pittman's going to have a winning record in 3 years. I don't know. That's what a mystery it is. So therefore, we're talking about whether we like him or not. That's all we know. I mean, he was way down. I mean, you know, you always heard the story. Jeremy Pruitt was the 7th choice. This guy may have been below that. Dan is in Georgia. Hey, Dan.
Hey, Paul. How's it going?
We're doing great. Thank you.
Hey, so I'm calling. I wanted to talk about the priority at Georgia going into this offseason.
Okay.
Right? You look at it for last year, and the year prior, the offense was fun to watch, although they still had Jim Chaney, and a great offensive coordinator, but he called plays conservatively. And, sometimes you got to a game and you thought, all right, I'm not going to see them gun the ball around. They're just going to rush for 250 yards. It's going to be they're going to win. You get this year, and we have Coley comes in and doesn't really improve from that at all. Actually goes the opposite way. Has the most boring offense I've ever seen in my entire life. What is Georgia's priority going into this offseason to try and revamp that and make it something watchable for next year?
I really don't know the answer because, I think we need to get through tomorrow and see what happens in recruiting. And then Kirby Smart can give his philosophy. I don't think you're going to hear Kirby philosophizing at all until he knows one thing. Is Jake Fromm coming back?
Yeah, so one of the other things is if you look at it, Jake Fromm struggled this year. And this was his first year where he was the only guy that could throw the ball. The first year he was competing with Eason. Last year he was competing with Fields. And this year he doesn't have anyone there really to drive him besides Stetson Bennett, who, good guy, but he's probably not an SEC quarterback as far as a starter goes. So, is that something that you think would help them? Because right now they really only have one great quarterback recruit coming in Carson Beck. But, look at it this year. This was the year of the transfer with
I hate to run, Dan. Thanks. Good question, and one that will continue to be asked. We have 3 hours to go.